Hello there, and welcome back to World of Warship Legends. I am Derka, and today we're going to take a look at what is widely criticized as and considered one of the most overpowered ships in the game. That is the Tier 7 Premium American Cruiser, Wichita. Now, if you thought she was a strong ship before, just wait. On Wichita, we have put on the new Azur Lane Baltimore Commander, which offers a significant boost to rudder shift time. Our perks are Beyond Range, Punch Through, Igniter, Steer Clear, and Fully Packed, and on the ship we are using aiming systems, steering gears, concealment mod, and the gunfire and control system. So there are a lot of reasons that the Wichita could be considered overpowered, but before we get there, let's compare it a little bit to the Baltimore, which is kind of like the tech tree version of this ship. Wichita in real life was the predecessor to Baltimore, and they are very similar in Legends. Wichita has a little bit less HP than Balti at 37,900 on this build. They have the same guns, 3x3, 203mm, but they shoot different shells in this game, which kind of contributes to their different playstyle. The Wichita does not shoot super heavy AP shells like the Baltimore gets. This is good and bad. They're smaller shells, so they actually have a higher velocity in the air, making it easier to shoot at long range, but they penetrate significantly less armor. It's like they have a shorter arming fuse, kind of like the British ships. This is the reason I did not take the perk AP Salute Ammunition. That's the perk on this Azur Lane Commander in perk slot 3, and it increases your penetration multiplier and reduces the detonation of your cruiser's AP shell. So as you can imagine, this would be really strong on Baltimore, where, you know, a lot of times, like on a broadside cruiser, you're going to overpin targets. So having this perk to lower your shell fuse time would help, but not so much on Wichita. So Wichita has a great firing range, 17 kilometers on this build, 8.8 second reload, which is fast for 203s, 9-kilometer radar that lasts 30 seconds. The ship also comes with sonar and heals, and we're starting to paint a picture why this ship is so good. But it gets better. Wichita's concealment is very good, one of the best Tier 7 cruisers, and with the right specs you can bring it down below 10 kilometers. This one currently is 10.3 kilometers, and we have Makawa on here, and he's not even that high of a level. I think maybe he's a 12, but having this low concealment allows you to get into and out of sticky situations. Wichita maneuverability is extremely good, and by putting on the Azur Lane Baltimore Commander, it makes it ridiculous, basically. The rudder shift time would embarrass a lot of destroyers. With such a quick rudder shift, it's very hard for you to hit this ship at range, and ours currently in the Azur Lane Baltimore Commander is not that high of a level, I think a 12, but our rudder shift is below 4 seconds, and I know that it can get a lot better. So, if all that wasn't enough to prove that Wichita is a strong contender, maybe for the best Tier 7 ship, or the best Tier 7 cruiser, let's not go that far. If any of you have ever shot at the Wichita, you know how difficult it is to pin and to citadel. And while we don't have an armor viewer, it's very obvious that the Wichita has a hard to access citadel, maybe low below the waterline or even small, so it's tough to deal catastrophic damage to this ship. Speaking of the armor, Wichita also has a 27mm bow, meaning that you can go face to face with battleships that have 15-inch guns or smaller. Obviously, you'll have to keep an eye out for the Iowas, the Vlads, the Yamatos, the Grosser Kurfürst, etc. But any of those battleships that have 15-inch guns or smaller, you don't have to fear them, you can bow tank them. So at this point, let's start looking at our gameplay. So all of these attributes that we've been talking about makes the Wichita strong. But what I really think makes this cruiser, you know, so great is that you can play it in so many different situations and succeed. Some of the downfalls of a lot of ships, let's say like Atlanta or Fletcher is that they're kind of situational. You have to be in the right situation to really take advantage of them. But the Wichita isn't really like that. Most situations that you get put in, you can handle it. So for instance, out here, we're playing open water kiting with our extreme rudder shift and our concealment. The Wichita excels at this. These guys are having a hard time hitting me, obviously, as I've racked up 40,000 damage on them. They've barely done 1,000 to me. So playing in open water is definitely an option. If not for the Akatsuki in the capture point here, there are several times when we could have just stopped firing and completely dropped spot with a 10-kilometer detection range. Pretty much any time that you want to stop shooting and disappear, reposition, you can. I was actually kind of experimenting with Lemonier on this build too, to have a quicker disappear time basically after firing your guns, and it is a low level Lemonier, but it still seems to be pretty helpful. So at the beginning of the game we kind of played open water, setting fires, harassing the enemy, trying to tick down these battleships, but now it's, you know, getting to the point in the game where we need to be a little more aggressive, get into one of these caps, and so the Wichita also excels at this. With its 27mm bow armor and tankiness, we are able to move into the cap. Sonar, radar, we're able to move in, contest, and bully this Akatsuki out. If he wants to stay, he dies. In other ships, you know, the French cruisers, the Japanese cruisers, they're really good at open water kiting, concealment, long-range accuracy, starting fires. But when it comes into a situation like this, where you have to move into a cap, contest it, if these battleships were a little more aggressive and were closer up, or actually shooting AP, Bismarck, then, you know, a Tago Miyoko probably wouldn't handle those situations very well. But the Wichita just eats shots and hangs in there. Again, with the sonar running, there's really not a lot that Akatsuki can do to us either. But the Cleveland in this kind of range, you know, can be dangerous with those really fast firing 152mm and starting fires. But overall, you see we're really not taking a lot of damage, and we're on the front lines in a cruiser. So we're continuing to try to get a cap, and I'm really wanting to get this Bismarck out of here. You've noticed we've been focusing him a lot at the beginning because they, you know, most Bismarck players are using Ciliacs or Henry J. Hyde, and they probably have 4 heals. So if you just leave him alive, he's going to continue healing, reprinting his ship. Just really need to get him out of the game. So Bismarck's down, and we continue to shoot the Cleveland, who doesn't really weather these 203mm shells very well. The Synop, being at that long of range, he just, you know, the accuracy is pretty poor on Russian battleships at that far, anything above 11 kilometers, so we don't have a lot to fear from him either. Just gonna keep moving up and pushing the Cleveland out of here. On the sea side of the map, their destroyer went down early to our Vladivostok, giving us a huge advantage over there, and their Tirpitz also got taken out relatively quickly, so not a lot to worry about over on the sea cap side of things. And at this point, we're kind of wondering where the Akatsuki got off to, because that needs to be my next objective, really, is to hunt down and take out that Akatsuki before he can do anything else. And B-Cap looks like it's being captured, so that's probably where I'm going to find him. So we're just going to try to finish off this cap, maybe light another fire on the Synop, and move over into B. Kind of being cautious about going around this corner and showing broadside, but if you needed to or wanted to with such a low concealment, you could just sail right over into B-Cap, and the Synop would probably not be the wiser. Wichita does kind of have higher firing arcs, not as bad as Atlanta or Cleveland, but it's kind of advantageous too, because you can get shots over islands relatively well. so we have A cap. We're going to start moving over to B. Up takes another shot at us. But again, at that kind of range, there's probably not a lot that he can do. And with our lower citadel, there's very rarely that you'll take catastrophic shots like this. At least in my experience. Let me preface it by saying that. You'll go do this and get shot by a Gneisenau at 15 kilometers and detonate it or something. But so next we are going to move over into B and hopefully root out this Akatsuki. It's looking like we'll also get the kill on the Sinop. Like I was talking about earlier, you know, what makes a good ship? To me, it's the versatility. Having a ship that can compete in different situations and do well. It's hard to play situational ships. Sometimes you just get put into situations where they can't handle and they don't do well, but the Wichita, pretty much regardless, is going to do just fine. Domination, capture the base mode, open maps, island maps. If you spawn into one of those games and there's 5 destroyers on the enemy team, then you really don't have anything to fear and you're going to be destroyer hunting. Same goes for battleships. Really the only thing that you have to fear are those larger gunned battleships like we were talking about earlier. I think I might have left this part out, but the Wichita is also pretty darn fast. If using one of the battle flags, you can get up to about 35 knots. So there's not a lot that this ship is bad at. Here, kind of the end of the game, all that is left is a Prince Eugen and another Akatsuki, I believe. And usually sailing into this gap, you kind of have to be careful because we know the Akatsuki is over on the left and the Prince Eugen is on the right, and it's hard to kind of bow tank both of them. But I don't know, those were probably the worst torpedoes I've seen. And he gets himself spotted by a plane here so that we don't really have a lot to fear. I know exactly where he is and I want to move up and take him out and then go take on the German cruiser. The HE shells on the Wichita also are fantastic so that you have options shooting. You're not stuck mostly shooting armor penetration AP shells. You can switch to HE and do a significant amount of damage to battleship superstructures, destroyers like this, and even cruisers here, as the Prince Eugen's going to find out. So we go ahead and stop and dodge what must have been 15 torpedoes, and then we're going to bow tank the German cruiser here and finish this game off. The 3 heals go a long way in helping your longevity in the game and keeping you in the fight. Without them, like I've tried this build on the Indianapolis, and you know, for several reasons, the Indy's not as good of a ship, but the heals on the Wichita really help keep you in the game longer, help increase your longevity. So that's pretty much gonna wrap it up for this one. Let me know what you guys think of the Wichita. If Wargaming needs to nerf it, let me know what you guys think of the new Azur Lane Commanders. I'll be curious to hear your guys' opinions and what kind of builds you are making with all these new commanders that we have, if you have promotion orders, that is. Well, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, see ya.